Bruce Johnson, president and founder of BizScalers and the BizScalers Club, and today I want to talk to you about how to deal with employees who don't fully get their work done. How do you deal with employees who don't fully get their work done? When you assign a task out, when you delegate a task to one of your employees or direct reports, and they come back, and let's say you ask them to do 4 things, and they come back with 2 of them done, how do you feel? Well, if you're like most of us, you feel pretty frustrated. I mean, I asked you to do 4 things, and you gave me 2 of the 4. Like, how could you hand this back to me without doing all 4 of them? Or you ask them to do something and they do something completely different than what you asked them to do. When you delegate out a task like that, how does it make you feel? If you're like most of us, pretty frustrated and angry. Come on, I asked you to do 4 things. That's it, 4 things, and you couldn't get those 4 done? And now you did number 3 differently? Was I not clear? Right? There's a lot of frustration and anger that builds up on a regular basis for most business owners and entrepreneurs because they delegate out a task. You think that you've delegated it out well, and yet the person comes back and it's just not completed. So what do you do to turn that around? Because if you're not turning it around, you walk into your place of business and you're frustrated frequently, sometimes pretty angry. But if you could turn it around, how would that change your everyday experience in your workplace? If every day you came in and people actually were getting their work done and fully getting it done, like, it'd be a joy. Like, that's what we want. So if that's what you'd like to get to, then I want to encourage you to listen closely as I'm going to share something with you today about how to fix this problem about your employees who aren't fully getting their work done. Now, to answer this question, what I want to do is I want to give you a little gift. I want to give you a little taste of what's inside the BizScalers Club. Because I think you're going to like it. It addresses this problem. And what I do each week is I create a leadership lesson from the trenches. Because as you know, most business owners and entrepreneurs haven't had a lot of training in leadership, but it's one of the key levers that allows you to grow and scale your business faster. And so every week I create one. I've done 45 of these now. And the one I'm going to share with you is from a while back. It's number 12. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. So with that said, take a listen and enjoy this little taste from the BizScalers Club. Hi, and welcome to this week's leadership lesson. This one is number 12, and this one is on 95% is 5% too short. 95% is 5% too short. Do you ever get frustrated that you have some employees, and when you give them a task, they kind of get it done, but they don't fully get it done? If you have, it's really frustrating. My guess is you've had plenty of those over the years. Right now, I'm in the middle of a website redesign, and one of the outsourcers I'm dealing with is one of those people who just doesn't follow through on all the directions. So maybe I'll send him an email. Let's say there are 5 things I say I'd like to have done, and he'll get 3 of them done. Or let's say I take a video of something on the screen. I want to say I want to correct this, and I'd like it to do this, and this, right? Whatever it be. And then I send it to him, and either A, he doesn't watch it, or B, when he does watch it, he again only gets 3 or 4 or 5 of the items done, but he doesn't get it all done every single time. Well, after about 2 or 3 days of watching this, I sent a note to his boss, and I said to his boss, I need you to help me solve a problem. You have one of your employees who is not getting his job done, and then I kind of walked through some of the problems about, getting 3 out of 5 items done, etc. And then I said to him, I want to give you a phrase that I use with my employees that I think you might want to use with yours, and that is that 95% is 5% too short. And what I mean by that is that completing a task is a binary decision. You either complete it or you don't complete it. It's not a gradient. There aren't degrees. You don't kind of get something done. You either complete the project as directed or you don't. Now, if he has any questions about a direction, all he has to do is ask, and I will gladly answer. If he has a better idea, after I say, hey, I'd like this done, and he says, well, I could do that, but I think you might actually prefer this, I'm always open to it, and I have no problem with that at all. But for him to disregard what I've asked him to do is not an option, nor is it an option to do 60 or 70% or 80% of the things that I've asked. He has to do 100% of them. Remember, I'm the client, and his job is, and similar to you being the boss with an employee, right? His job is to do exactly what I ask him to do or ask questions, but he doesn't have the ability or the right to disregard. Well, that got his boss really heated. His boss got on him, and now we're back on track. So out of this, I want to pick 2 lessons. Now, most of the lessons in the leadership lessons from the trenches are designed really to help you focus in on things you do. But frequently, there are also things for you to do with your people, and this is going to be one of them, because this is a phrase I think you want to use. So 2 key leadership lessons here. One is that if there is something that you want to communicate to your people and you want to do it quickly, come up with a good phrase. Now, I didn't create this phrase. I don't remember where I learned it. It was probably decades ago, but I've loved that phrase ever since, that 95% is 5% too short. And so find phrases that you can use to illustrate a key principle. In this case, if you're given a task, you need to complete it fully, because faithfulness isn't a gradient. It's not, there's no curve where you're going to evaluate whether or not someone was like 60 or 70 or 90%. You have to be fully faithful. And you can come up with stories. Back in my old preaching days, this is the story I used to tell to illustrate this to people in my church. I said, let's just take a couple. We'll call them George and Elizabeth. And let's say that George says to his wife, Elizabeth, one year, hey, honey, I just want you to know that I've been faithful to you this past year, 362 days. And everyone goes like that. And then I would say, now, I want to ask you, how many of you think that Elizabeth thinks that George was faithful to him last year? Like nobody's hand goes up. And I say, now, before we give George a hard time, let's just do the math, because that's what George did. George did 362 divided by 365 means that he was over 99% faithful. I mean, on the gradient idea of faithfulness, like he's really at the top of the list, right? I mean, he's not at 50% faithful. He's not at 60% or 70% or 90%. He's at 99% faithful. So knowing that, how many of you think that George was faithful to his wife? Again, no one's hand goes up. I said exactly, because faithfulness, completing the task as assigned, is a binary. You either complete the task or you don't complete the task. There aren't gradients. You don't kind of complete the task. You actually do or you don't. And so you want to find phrases like 95% is 5% too short to, in a short way, communicate to your people. Create the culture around the fact that when we're given a task, we don't kind of get the task done. We complete it. I've given you the image here of the runner, and if you look at the bottom, you see the finish line. A project has a finish line. If you stop short of the finish line, you actually don't finish the race, right? You have to cross the finish line. You have to get past 100%, because if you're at 95 or 90 or 70%, you haven't finished or completed the task. 95% is still 5% too short. You either do it all or you don't. It's not a gradient curve here at all. And if you can begin to use phrases like that to help your people know when you're given a task, you complete it fully, that will help you build a more scalable business. In addition, I hope that you learned that in this case here, after 2 days of observing this behavior, I went to, in this case, used his lever, which would be his boss. In your case, it would probably be you talking to your employee or one of your leaders talking to their direct reports. But you can't spend a lot of time with putting up with somebody not completing tasks, right? As soon as you see somebody developing a pattern that they're not completing something as fully as they're supposed to, use the 95% is 5% too short, but don't wait weeks, which is what most business owners and entrepreneurs do. Don't wait months, like wait days at max. And if you sense any pattern, get on it immediately. Why? Because that's how you fix the problem, right? As long as people can get away with something less than excellence, they will. You just have to be the one who reinforces. Remember the lessons number 2, culture isn't what's written, it's what's enforced. That's your job. So set the phrase, 95% is 5% too short. And then when you see somebody and you catch a pattern, nip it early, because if you do, then you get people back up on the curve of it's 100% or it's not. And the good news, by the way, in my case, is that the guy now knows 95% is 5% too short. So this is this week's leadership lesson. Hopefully it helps you create the culture that you want, and make sure you come up with some great phrases like this one, because 95% is 5% too short. Well, until our next leadership lesson, I hope you have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope that you own that idea. First of all, that you own the idea that completing a task is binary. You either complete it or you don't. That 95% is 5% too short. Secondly, I hope that you really understand that to create culture, you need to come up with phrases like this that you talk about all the time. Now, there are other trainings on how to create culture, but having a phrase that you can use to help people understand this idea that completing a task is a binary. You can't kind of complete the task. 70% is not completing the task. 95% is 5% too short. And then thirdly, that when you see a problem, you need to nip it quickly. Don't wait 3 days, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 years, right? Deal with it quickly. And then just remind people, right? We have a standard here in our company, and that is that 95% is 5% too short. When we ask you to do a task, it needs to be completed 100%. So is this completed 100%, or is it 95 or 55 or something short of that? And then talk about that 95% is 5% too short. So I'd encourage you to do that, build that into the culture, and you'll start nipping that quickly. And now you'll start enjoying being in your business a lot more. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, I'd encourage you to check out the BizScalers Club at bizscalers.com/club, bizscalers.com/club. And this is just 6.5 minutes out of well over 100 hours currently, and it grows every week, of content to help you be able to grow and scale your business faster. So check it out, bizscalers.com/club. Hopefully you found this helpful for yourself personally. You have some friends and others who are business owners and entrepreneurs of other companies. Make sure you pass this along to them. If you haven't subscribed yet to our YouTube channel and you're watching this by YouTube, so hit the subscribe button. If you're listening to it by podcast, hit subscribe there as well, because my commitment to you each and every week is to bring you actionable content that will help you be able to grow and scale your business faster. So until next week, to your accelerated success, Bruce out.